Hello. Hello. Hi guys. Thank you for joining the live stream. Yes, I'm sorry for being late. Today I was 3 minutes late. It's a much lesser late than other days. Delays during important moment. Okay. Thank you for joining the live stream. Today we are starting volume 2 of Brahma Purana. I'm really excited about it. So the volume 1 was 540 pages. Okay. And I didn't start doing live streams on it up until about, I think, 150 pages. And even then it took about 21 live streams to end. Okay, of course we discuss other stuff between the live streams as well, but this volume 2 is about 420 something pages, so I'm guessing even this will take about 20 live streams probably. Look how cute, how beautiful this looks. And remember, I wish I had kept the volume 1 with me as well. If you keep the volume 1 and 2 side by side, you get the entire Jagannath Puri temple illustration together. Okay. And today I'm in a very Brahma Puran mood, and I don't want to discuss anything much other than Brahma Puran, which is why I didn't start with a live reaction thing. But I had something in mind. It was a short thing I wanted to talk about, so I'll just mention it casually before hoping some other people join as well. Which is there's an old person called Victor Hansen. Now he has recently started a YouTube channel as well. I first came to know of him from Jordan Peterson's podcast only. So I really liked all the stuff he said. He's sort of a classical liberal guy, very old person, very decent, well-spoken, polite gentleman. He has been a fellow professor in different universities in his lifetime. He's mainly a Western history and Western philosophy and some sort of history of conflicts expert. Okay, history of conflicts by the West. Okay, or in the West. So Europe, USA, etc. He's an expert on those things. So he gets called upon to discuss stuff that how America is changing, how USA is going to the dogs, etc. Those sorts of things. So I really liked him. I was following his stuff, and again today I saw something he said about India, and it always happens repeatedly. You can't help these people. They seem to say all nice things, all correct things on, and they can have rational correct debates about any topic on earth with anyone, except when it comes to India and Hinduism. Again, I don't blame these people personally. Of course, I don't hate Jordan Peterson for having absolutely hilariously wrong views on not views, basically his knowledge, his information source on Hinduism is pretty flimsy. So all the Indian academics who have produced knowledge, and before that when the British were actually writing about India, the continuation has been same, as all of you all know, that it's basically about what are the problems in India and how bad India is at handling these stuff. Okay, to the extent that when a problem occurs elsewhere versus when that same problem occurs in India, it's looked upon differently, as if it's something distinctly Indian, whether it's the caste system or some conflicts based on two religions. All those things are looked upon as a fantastically unbelievably Indian concept. It's never happened anywhere else. That's how they talk about everything in India. Now he was the video I was looking at today just before coming to the live stream was it was a 15-minute long video. The topic was the great American experiment. Okay, the experiment being that can people from different races, different religions, different ideas come together under one banner and live peacefully. So I was wondering whether if he's going to approach it from history, or is he going to talk about just how USA managed it. Fair enough. So I saw that he was getting into history a bit, and then he was comparing it with other societies as well, other countries in history and today. So then I thought, okay, he's going to mention India at some point, right? Because India, at least today, it is exactly what he's talking about. And even earlier days, it was a society in general, maybe not under one united ruling party or ruling king banner sort of a thing. So, but let's see how he brings up India, because he has to bring up India in some way or the other. If we are talking about people of multiple races, multiple belief systems, and multiple cultures, multiple customs, multiple languages living under one umbrella. You can't have this conversation without mentioning India at all. So, for about more than half of the video, he does not mention India. He mentions Japan. He mentions China. He was giving out these examples in terms of that you can love Japan, but you will never really be accepted in Japanese society unless you are Japanese by race. That country is 98% Japanese. Okay, everyone looks the same, etc. So in China, there's an autocratic state, and you can't really become a Chinese citizen randomly just because you love that country. Or he was giving out examples of ancient Rome. He said that yes, Roman Empire was kind of like that, and because all their pre-Christianity or pre-European or the pre-modern era, good things that they find, everything is there in Roman era only, and Roman era alone. Outside Roman era, nothing ever happened. Roman Empire, okay. So he said, yeah, Roman Empire kind of did it. Then he said that, see, even Ottoman Empire, so many people of different races lived together, but it was controlled with one gigantic strong fist of the religion. In Soviet Union, it was a collection of different countries, different races, but again enforced by one autocratic state. Then he mentions India, and he says, even India, there are people of many races and religions, but you see, they have the caste system. Which was very brutal, which is very brutal, which is very oppressive, and there are significant religious strife between Hindus and Muslims. Now, of course, there are religious strifes between Hindus and Muslims, and the numbers are we can debate how significant exactly the numbers are, but when someone says that there is some religious strife in a country, and therefore that country is disqualified from the conversation of being one umbrella which accommodates people of different cultures, customs, faiths, and languages, then we have to talk about USA like Palki Sharma, that अरे भाई तुम्हारा race riots का क्या हुआ तब? Then we are supposed to forget all the countless race riots, all the lynchings of black people, hanging black people from the trees. And up until 60s, there was Jim Crow laws. You all had slavery until 200 years back. Okay. So that's the disappointment we'll always face with people outside India. Some of it is because of their all of it is because of their sources, but some of their sources are the stuff written by the British people, and later on they have only read stuff written by people like Arundhati fucking Roy. So I don't blame them personally, but that's just another disappointment, that you'll never be able to meet these heroes with the full amount of respect that you would like to have, because when it comes to India and Hinduism, they are all stupid fucking asses. Why do you trust Arya Samaj translations of the Vedas? Many people make fun of it and say that Arya Samaj completely changed the meaning of the Vedas to suit his ideology. What do you think? It doesn't matter what do I think. It matters whether they changed it or not, and how can I have an opinion on this? Because Arya Samaji people say that they haven't, and non-Arya Samaji people say they have. So there's no point in taking a side in this, because I have not read them, and I'm not an ardent Arya Samaj fan, nor am I an ardent Arya Samaj hater. For them, caste system is the ultimate truth of Bharat and Hinduism. Every society have problem. It's about how that society handles it. Yes. So if assuming that the goal was that there should have been absolutely no religious strife between Hindus and Muslims ever. Okay. So in that case, we'll have to of course tell them that what about your race riots, and also wait and watch until you have a 20% Muslim population. Okay. Then let the fun begin. Changing Lives is saying a person on GRD literally interrupted Joe Rogan when he tried to give credit of yoga to Hindu. Who? Andrew Huberman. Andrew Huberman got really called out by Hindus in Twitter that what the fuck, you are talking about yoga nidra and you are saying it's woo woo, and now he openly says that it's all yoga nidra. He said South Asian or Southeast Asian. And you see, even if someone does say that and they are a fan of Sadhguru and they have listened to Sadhguru, how will you blame that person then? Sadhguru is the one. He's a Hindu guru. A guru is going around saying that yoga is not Hindu. How will you blame the Westerner? caste cow curry. Okay guys, let's start Brahma Puran. And in Brahma Puran today, we will do a bit of an introduction as well, because I think it's the same introduction that was written in the volume 1 as well. It's just a basic gist of them explaining, Bibek Debroy explaining that how they have approached the translation. This might be helpful for a lot of people who might have some queries about the translations, okay? So for that reason, we'll check out this small translation as well. For Shaifalika Panda and Shubhrakant Panda. I wonder who they are. Okay. Acknowledgements. Yeah, let's read the acknowledgements as well, because we will come to get to know a lot about where and how they accumulated all these texts. Okay, these parts are really interesting as well. Another Brahmanical casteist text, yes. The corpus of the Puranas is huge in scope, coverage and size. The Mahabharata is believed to contain 1 lakh shlokas. The critical edition of the Mahabharata, edited and published by the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, Pune, doesn't contain quite that many, but no matter. This gives us some idea of the size. To comprehend what 1 lakh shlokas mean in a standard word count, the 10-volume unabridged translation I did of the Mahabharata amounts to a staggering 2.5 million words. After composing the Mahabharata, Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa composed the 18 Mahapuranas or major Puranas. So the belief goes. Collectively, these 18 Puranas amount to 4 lakh shlokas, translating into a disconcerting and daunting number of 10 million words. After translating the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, the Harivamsha, 1,60,000 words, and the Valmiki Ramayana, 5 lakh words, it was but natural to turn one's attention towards translating the Puranas. All these translations have been and will be published by Penguin India as the most popular and most read Purana. The Bhagavat Puran chose itself as the first to be translated, 3 volumes, 5 lakh words. Oh, this is an interesting way to write the sentence, okay? He's saying Bhagavat Puran chose itself as the first to be translated. The Markandeya Puran, another popular Puran, was 1 volume, 1,75,000 words, came next. That these translations were well received was encouragement along the intimidating journey of translating the remaining Puranas, and I am indebted to the reviewers of these various translations, including those of the Bhagavat Puran and the Markandeya Puran. Which Puran should one choose next to translate? This journey of translation has been marked by several coincidences. While still in the process of choosing, I happened to visit Pushkara for the first time in my life. Temples to Brahma are rare. Among Brahma's temples, the most important is the one in Pushkara, in Rajasthan, right? I think that's the only Brahma temple in the world, I guess, or in the country. As I gazed at Brahma's image, at his Kamandalu and Akshamala, the decision made itself. It had to be the Brahma Puran. The 18 Mahapuranas, as the introduction explains, are sometimes individually identified with Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. The Bhagavat Puran is a Puran identified with Vishnu. The Markandeya Puran, though identified with Brahma, is partly about Devi, because the Devi Mahatmya, Mahatmika, I guess it's called, is part of the Markandeya Puran, is partly about Devi, and hence by extrapolation identified with Shiva. One should accordingly choose Brahma Puran, often described as the first Puran, though the present text is clearly not the original Brahma Puran, okay? Average familiarity with the Brahma Puran might not be as great as with Bhagavat Puran or the Markandeya Puran, but there was no denying the Brahma Puran's importance. Hence, this translation in 2 volumes running up to 3,90,000 words. The coincidence did not end here. I had completed the actual translation and was going to start on the introduction. In the interim, I happened to visit Raja Mahendravaram, Raja Mahendrapuram, also known as Raja Mahendrapuram or Raja Mundri, if you prefer, for the first time in my life. Okay, where is this place? From Pushkar Ghat, I looked on at the wide expanse of the Godavari and watched the Aarti to Gautami. I visited the Koti Lingveshwara temple. The places described in the Gautami Mahatmya section seemed to come alive. From Triambakeshwara to Antaravedi, from the Sahir range to the confluence with the ocean. The journey of translation hasn't been an intimidating one only for me. Penguin India must also have thought about it several times before going ahead with the Purana translations. Most people have some idea about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, but the Puranas are typically rendered in such dumbed down versions that the market has to be created. However, Penguin India also believed in the Purana project, which still stretches into some interminable horizon in the future. Almost 2 decades down the line, for both author and publisher, this is a long-term commitment, but Bhagavad Puran, Markandeya Puran and Brahma Puran have been done. With the publication schedule inevitably disrupted because of the COVID pandemic, Vishnu Puran comes next, followed by Shiv Puran. I am indebted to Penguin India, in particular Meru Gokhel, Ambar Sahil Chatterjee, Tarini Uppal, Riya Mukherjee have been exceptionally patient, preserving and encouraging, but for them the Puran project might not have taken off. I also thank the copy editors. These Puran translations have been brought alive by the wonderful cover designs and illustrations, and I thank the illustrators and designs. Ever since the translation journey started in 2006, my wife Suparna Banerjee Debroy has been a constant source of support, ensuring the conducive and propitious environment for the work to continue unimpeded. Part 2 has a dialogue between Agni and Atreyi. Agni tells Atreyi, "At first you were a Patni, then for sustaining you became Bharya. To give birth you became Jaya. Through your own qualities you became Kalatra." The vocabulary of Sanskrit is immensely rich. There are multiple synonyms for every word, each with a slightly different nuance. This is also true of the word wife. Patni, Bharya, Jaya, Kalatra are instances. Suparna has been all these and more. In every Purana text, I have been struck by the importance given to a wife in her different roles, and in the case of the Bhagavad Puran and the Markandeya Puran, I have quoted verses. The Brahma Puran is no different. Men desire wives for every kind of happiness. A wife is the source of happiness. Therefore, act in that way. This is a quote from Brahma Puran, and as far as I remember, this is in Manusmriti as well. Another quote, "She is the mother of my Dharma. She is the mistress of my body. She is always my aid in the pursuit of Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. When I am content, she laughs. When I am angry, she wipes away my misery." One should note that this is said by a male pigeon about his wife. Another quote, "In every task undertaken by a man, the wife is an aid. Without her, there is no success in even the slightest of tasks. The translation work is not a slight task, and without her as an aid and support, it wouldn't have happened." The Brahma Puran is rich in geography, and it brought alive for me the region in and around Odisha, a state I am especially fond of. Shaifalika Panda and Shubhrakant Panda have told us stories about Odisha and have also invited us there. This is an opportunity to tell our dear friends some stories about Odisha by dedicating this book to a warm and generous couple. Okay, this is in 2021. Now the introduction, guys. I'll just check some comments. Another Brahminical caste text. Yes. South Asian Mat Kaho, Akhand Bharat Kaho. Markandeya Puran contains the famous Chandi Path spanning 13 chapters. Yes, that is the Devi Mahatmya. Introduction. How they approached the translation basically. The word Purana means old, ancient. The Puranas are old texts usually referred to in conjunction with Itihasa, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Whether Itihasa originally meant only the Mahabharata, with the Ramayana being added to that expression later, is a proposition on which there has been some discussion. But that's not relevant for our purposes. In the Chandogya Upanishad, there is an instance of the sage Narada approaching the sage Sanat Kumara for instruction. Asked about what he already knows, Narada says he knows Itihasa and Puran, the fifth Veda. So the fifth Veda is Chandogya Upanishad. In other words, Itihasa Purana possessed an elevated status. This by no means implies that the word Purana as used in these two Upanishads and other texts too is to be understood in the sense of the word being applied to a set of texts known as the Puranas today. Okay. The Valmiki Ramayana is believed to have been composed by Valmiki and the Mahabharata by Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa. After composing the Mahabharata, Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa is believed to have composed the Puranas. The use of the word composed immediately indicates that Itihasa Purana are Smriti texts with a human origin. They are not Shruti texts with a divine origin. Composition does not mean these texts were rendered into writing. Instead, There was a process of oral transmission with inevitable noise in the transmission and distribution process. Writing came much later, so some distortions obviously. Purgiter's book on the Puranas is still one of the best introductions to this corpus. To explain the composition and transmission process, one can do no better than to quote him. Quote, "The Vayu and Padma Puranas tell us how ancient genealogies, tales and ballads were preserved, namely by the Sutas, and they describe the Sutas' duty. The Vayu, Brahmanda and Vishnu give an account on how the original Purana came into existence." Okay. Sutas were bards, minstrels or raconteurs. Those three Puranas say Krishna Dvaipayana divided the single Veda into 4 and arranged them, and so was called Vyasa. He entrusted them to his 4 disciples, 1 to each, namely Paila, Vaisampayana, Jaimini and Sumantu. Then with tales, anecdotes, songs and lore that had come down from the ages, he compiled a Purana and taught it and the Itihasa to his 5th disciple, the Suta Romaharshana or Lomaharshana, which literally means goosebumps. After that, he composed the Mahabharata. The epic itself implies that the Purana preceded it. As explained above, the Sutas had from remote times preserved the genealogies of gods, rishis and kings, and traditions and ballads about celebrated men, that is exactly the material, tales, songs and ancient lore, out of which the Purana was constructed. Whether or not Vyasa composed the original Purana or superintended its compilation, that is immaterial for the present purpose. After the original Purana was composed by Vyasa, as is said, his disciple Romaharshana taught it to his son Ugrasravas, and Ugrasravas, the Sauti appears as the reciter in some of the present Puranas, and the Sutas still retained the right to recite it for their livelihood. Okay, but as stated above, Romaharshana taught it to his 6 disciples, at least 5 of whom were Brahmans. It thus passed into the hands of the Brahmans, and their appropriation and development of it increased in the course of time. As the Purana grew into many Puranas, Sanskrit learning became peculiarly the province of the Brahmans, and as new and frankly sectarian Puranas were composed. Purgiter cited reasons for his belief that the Mahabharata was composed before the original Purana, though that runs contrary to the popular perception about the Mahabharata having been composed before the Puranas. That popular and linear perception is too simplistic, since texts evolved in parallel, not necessarily sequentially कि एक के बाद एक पहले ये इवॉल्व करेगा थोड़ा डिस्टॉर्ट होगा फिर ये इवॉल्व करेगा डिस्टॉर्ट होगा ऐसा नहीं है parallelly everything is evolving and distorting and everyone's adding random things, interpolating random things. In popular perception, Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa composed the Mahabharata. He then composed the Puranas. Alternatively, he composed an original core Purana text which has been lost, and others embellished it through additions. Just yesterday only, Odin commented on yesterday's live stream. He was very pissed off with some things that were said, that some things that were insanely contradictory to usual Hindu ideas. Okay, and he was saying that these have to be later interpolation. What the fuck is going on here? And we have noticed that many times, sometimes in the Puranas and many times in even the Arya Samaji Manusmriti. Okay, it's not all whitewashed. There are insane contradictions going on even in 2-3 pages. Okay, the adjective Purana, meaning old account or old text, became a proper noun signifying a specific text. To be classified as a Purana, it has to possess 5 attributes. Pancha Lakshmana, Panchalakhon. That is, 5 topics must be discussed. Okay, what makes a text a Purana? Interesting. Sarga, Pratisarga, Vamsha, Manavantara and Vamshanucharita. The clearest statement of this is in the Matsya Purana. Unlike the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, there is no critical edition of the Puranas. Therefore, citing chapter and the verse from a Purana text is somewhat more difficult, since verse, if not chapter, may vary from text to text, whichever version of the Purana you hold. With that caveat, the relevant shloka or verse should be in the 53rd chapter of the Matsya Purana. Sarga means the original or primary creation. The converse of Sarga is universal destruction or Pralaya. That period of Sarga lasts for one of Brahma's days, known as Kalpa. When Brahma sleeps during his night, there is universal destruction. In measuring time, there is the notion of a yuga or era, and there are four yugas: Satya Yuga, also known as Krita Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Satya Yuga lasts for 4000 years, Treta Yuga for 3000 years, Dwapara Yuga for 2000 years, and Kali Yuga for 1000 years. However, all these are not human years. The gods have a different time scale, and these are the years of the gods. As one progressively moves from Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga, virtue or dharma declines. But at the end of Kali Yuga, the cycle begins afresh with Satya Yuga. An entire cycle from Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga is known as a Mahayuga or Great Era. However, a Mahayuga is not just 10,000 years. There is further complication. At the beginning and the end of every Yuga, there are some additional years. These additional years are 400 for Satya Yuga, 300 for Treta Yuga, 200 for Dwapara Yuga, and 100 for Kali Yuga. A Mahayuga thus has 12,000 years, adding years both at the beginning and at the end. 1000 Mahayuga make up one Kalpa or Aeon, a single day for Brahma. A Kalpa is also divided into 14 Manvantaras, a Manvantara being a period during which a Manu presides and rules over creation. Therefore, there are 71.4 Mahayuga in a Manvantara. Our present Kalpa is known as the Shveta Varaha Kalpa. Within that, 6 Manus have come and gone. Their names are Swambhuva Manu, Swarochisha Manu, Uttama Manu, Tapasa Manu, Raivata Manu, Raivata Manu, and Chakshusha Manu. The present Manu is known as Vaivasvata Manu. Vivasvat, also written as Vivasvan, is the name of Surya, the sun god. Vaivasvata Manu has that name because he is Surya's son. Not only do Manus change from one Manavantara to another, so do the gods, the ruler of the gods, and the 7 great sages, known as the Saptarshis or 7 Rishis. Indra is a title of the ruler of the gods. It is not a proper name. The present Indra is Purandara. However, in a different Manavantara, someone else will hold the title. In the present 7th Manavantara, known as Vaivasvata Manavantara, there will also be 71.4 Mahayuga. We are in the 28th of these. Since a different Vedavyasa performs that task of classifying and collating the Vedas in every Mahayuga, Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa is the 28th in that series. Just so that it is clear, Vedavyasa isn't a proper name. It is a title conferred on someone who collates and classifies the Vedas. There have been 27 who have held the title of Vedavyasa before him, and he is the 28th. His proper name is Krishna Dvaipayana, Krishna because he was dark, and Dvaipayana because he was born on an island, Dvipa. So Dvaipayana. This gives us an idea of what the topic of Manavantara is about. This still leaves Pratisarga, Vamsha, and Vamshanucharita. The 2 famous dynasties or lineages were the solar dynasty, Surya Vamsha, and the lunar dynasty, Chandra Vamsha, and all the famous kings belonged to one or the other of these 2 dynasties. Vamshanucharita is about these lineages and the conduct of these kings. There were the gods and sages, rishis too, not always born through a process of physical procreation. Their lineages are described under the heading of Vamsha. Finally, within that cycle of primary creation and destruction, there are smaller and secondary cycles of creation and destruction. That's the domain of Pratisarga. In greater or lesser degree, all the Puranas cover these 5 topics, some more than the others. The Purana which strictly adheres to this 5-topic classification is the Vishnu Purana. There are Puranas and Puranas. Some are known as Sthala Puranas, describing the greatness and sanctity of a specific geographical place. Some are known as Upapuranas or minor Puranas. The listing of Upapuranas has regional variations, and there is no countrywide consensus about the list of Upapuranas, though it is often accepted there are 18. The Puranas we have in mind are known as Mahapuranas, major Puranas. Henceforth, when we use the word Puranas, we mean Mahapuranas. There is consensus that there are 18 Mahapuranas, though it is not obvious that this number of 18 existed right from the beginning. The names are mentioned in several of these texts, including a shloka that follows the shloka cited from the Matsya Purana. Thus, the 18 Puranas are Agni, Bhagavata, Brahma, Brahmanda, Brahma Vaivarta, Garuda, Kurma, Linga, Markandeya, Matsya, Narada, Padma, Shiva, Skanda, Vamana, Varaha, Vayu, and Vishnu. All the different Mahapuranas. A few additional points about this list. First, the Harivamsha is sometimes loosely described as a Purana, but strictly speaking, it's not a Purana. It is more like an addendum to the Mahabharata. Second, Bhavishya Purana is sometimes mentioned with Vayu excised from the list. However, the Vayu Purana exhibits many more Purana characteristics than the Bhavishya Purana does. There are references to a Bhavishya Purana that existed, but that may not necessarily be the Bhavishya Purana as we know it today. That's true of some other Puranas too. Texts have been completely restructured hundreds of years later. Third, it is not just a question of Bhavishya Purana and Vayu Purana. In the lists given in some Puranas, Vayu is part of the 18, but Agni is knocked out. In some others, Narasimha and Vayu are included, Narasimha and Vayu Puran, but Brahmanda and Garuda Puran are knocked out. Fourth point, when a list is given, the order also indicates some notion of priority or importance. Okay, so this list is literally in order of importance. Since that varies from text to text, our listing is simply alphabetical according to the English alphabet. The text of the Brahma Purana has no such listing of Puranas, but in the last chapter of part 1, chapter 138, which we did last day, which praises the Purana, it describes itself as the first Purana. Adi Purana. Indeed, the Brahma Purana is described as Adi Purana in several other Purana texts too, underlining its importance. The numbers within brackets indicate, okay, this is not for you all to know, there's no point. Let me see whatever is relevant to the live stream. Yeah, okay, let's check this out. The range is from 10,000 shlokas in Brahma Puran to a mammoth 81,100 shlokas in Skanda Puran. The aggregate is a colossal 4,09,500 shlokas. To convey a rough idea of the orders of magnitude, the Mahabharata has or is believed to have 1 lakh shlokas. It's a bit difficult to convert a shloka into word counts in English, especially because Sanskrit words have a slightly different structure. However, as a very crude approximation, 1 shloka is roughly 20 words. Yes, this is what we were discussing yesterday. That is why if a Sanskrit text is this thick, the English text will be this thick, the translation. Thus, 1 lakh shlokas become 2 million words and 4 lakh shlokas. And 4 lakh shlokas become 4 times the size of the Mahabharata, amounts to 8 million words. There is a reason for using the expression is believed to have as opposed to has. Rendering into writing is of later vintage. The initial process was one of oral transmission. In the process, many texts have been lost or are retained in imperfect condition. This is true of texts in general and is also specifically true of Itihasa and Puranas. The critical edition of the Mahabharata, mentioned earlier, no longer possesses 1 lakh shlokas, including the Harivamsha. There are around 80,000 shlokas. The critical edition of the Mahabharata has, of course, deliberately excised some shlokas. For the Puranas, there is no counterpart of critical editions. However, whichever edition of the Puranas one chooses, the number of shlokas in that specific Purana will be smaller than the numbers given above. Either those many shlokas did not originally exist, or they have been lost. This is the right place to mention that a reading of the Puranas assumes a basic degree of familiarity with the Valmiki Ramayana and the Mahabharata, more the latter than the former. So the Mahabharata. Without that familiarity, one will often fail to appreciate the context completely. More than passing familiarity with the Bhagavad Gita, strictly speaking, a part of the Mahabharata helps. Familiarity with the part of the Mahabharata. Let me check some comments a bit. This is Aryan text, Krishna Dvaipana wrote it. As Jains have Mahavir to be 24 Tirthankar and Gautama Buddha is neither the first nor the last Buddha. No, bhai. This is Krishna Dvaipana text, the Aryans wrote it. Anichakra has a video on this. Black Vyasa driving the Mahabharata and the principal text. This is Aryan black facing as Krishna Dvaipana. Neo-Buddhist and Marxist says Aryan are fair skin. Then how do they explain the Kali Krishna as dark skin? because Bengali Bahujan movements are saying that Krishna is a Dalit non-Aryan god. He was later appropriated by Aryans. They have cool answers for everything. I am jaundiced in Brahminical patriarchy. What is this Aryan nonsense still being peddled? We have debunked this on Sanjay Dixit as well as Kushal Mehra's channel. Arya is a word. It means noble. Yeah, they are having fun. Okay. Other than the 5 attributes, which basically is the 5 criterion for calling something a Puran, calling a text a Puran. Other than the 5 attributes, the Puranas have a considerable amount of information on geography and even geological changes in the courses of river and astronomy. Therefore, those 5 attributes shouldn't suggest that the Puranas have nothing more. They do, and they have therefore been described as encyclopedias. Bharatavarsha is vast and heterogeneous, and each Purana may very well have originated in one particular part of the country. Accordingly, within that broad compass of an overall geographical description, the extent of geographical information varies from Purana to Purana. Some are more familiar with one part of the country than with another. For example, for the Brahma Puran, part 1 has extensive descriptions of the Utkala region, while part 2 has, now which we are going to start, has the same same level of description for the region of Dandakaranya, through which the Godavari flows. Though not explicitly mentioned in the 5 attributes, the Puranas are also about pursuing Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, the 4 objectives of human existence, and about the 4 Varnas and the 4 Ashramas. The general understanding and practice of Dharma is based much more on the Puranas than on the Vedas. I see. The general understanding and practice of Dharma is based much more on the Puranas than on the Vedas. Culture, notions of law, rituals, architecture and iconography are based on the Puranas. There is beautiful poetry too. Perhaps one should mention that there are 2 ways these 18 Puranas are classified. The Trinity has Brahma as the creator, Vishnu as the preserver and Shiva as the destroyer. Therefore, Puranas were creation, Puranas where creation themes feature prominently are identified with Brahma, that is the Brahma Puran, Brahmanda Puran, Brahma Vaivarta Puran and the Markandeya Puran. Puranas where Vishnu features prominently are identified as Vaishnava Puranas, which is the Bhagavad Puran, Garuda Puran, Kurma Puran, Matsya Puran, Narada Puran, Padma Puran, Vamana Puran, Varaha Puran and Vishnu Puran. Puranas where Shiva features prominently are identified as Shaiva Puranas, Agni Puran, Linga Puran, Shiva Puran, Skanda Puran, Vayu Puran. Have you all seen his recent release? His latest release is the Shiv Puran, which released I think 1 or 2 months back only. What a beautiful illustrations! Beautiful illustration that book has. I can't wait to read it. I think it's two volume only. I'll finish Brahma Puran, then we'll do the 3-volume history of Indian philosophy, then we'll do Shiv Puran. While there is a grain of truth in this, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva are all important and all 3 feature in every Puran. Therefore, beyond the relative superiority of Vishnu vis-a-vis Shiva, the taxonomy probably doesn't serve much purpose. The Brahma Puran is so named because it was originally recounted by Brahma, with subsequent transmissions by Vedavyasa and Lomaharshana, Vedavyasa's disciple. The second classification is even more tenuous and is based on the 3 gunas of Sattva, purity, Rajas, passion and Tamas, ignorance. Not Sattva, Sattva. Yeah, Sattva. For example, the Uttarakhanda of the Padma Puran has a few shlokas along these lines recited by Shiva to Parvati, with a caveat similar to the one mentioned earlier. This should be in the 236th chapter of the Uttarakhanda. According to this, the Puranas characterized by Sattva are Bhagavad Puran, Garuda Puran, Narada Puran, Padma Puran, Varaha Puran and Vishnu Puran. Those characterized by Rajas are Bhavishya Puran, Brahma Puran, Brahmanda Puran, Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Markandeya Puran and Vamana Puran. Those characterized by Tamas are Agni Puran, Kurma Puran, Linga Puran, Matsya Puran, Skanda Puran and Shiva Puran. Shiv Puran. Within a specific Purana text, there are earlier sections as well as later ones. That makes it difficult to date a Purana except as a range. Across Purana texts, there are older Puranas as well as later ones. Extremely speculatively, the dating will be something like the following. Okay, this part will be interesting, guys. So listen to this with intent ears. Agni Puran, according to at least Bibek Debroy, the Agni Puran that we have today. Okay, all the names we are going to mention, it's about the texts we have today, maybe not the original ones. So the Agni Puran we have today was written, according to Bibek Debroy, at around 800 to 1100 AD. Bhagavad Puran 500 to 1000 AD. Brahma Puran 700 to 1500 AD. Brahmanda Puran 400 to 600 AD. So this is pretty old. Even the Brahmanda Puran that we have today, according to Bibek Debroy, is written in 400 to 600 AD. Brahma Vaivarta Puran 700 to 1500 AD. Garuda Puran 800 to 1100 AD. The Kurma Puran 600 to 900 AD. Linga Puran 500 to 1000 AD. Markandeya Puran 250 to 700 AD. Pretty old. Matsya Puran 200 to 500 AD, guys. Narada Puran 900 to 1600 AD. Padma Puran 400 to 1600 AD. This is a huge range. Shiv Puran 1000 to 1400 AD. So after even after Kashmiri Shaivism evolved to that extent and reached other places, the Sri Vigyan Bhairav Tantra is written in around 800 AD. Skanda Puran 600 to 1200 AD, very long range. Vamana Puran 450 to 900 AD. Varaha Puran 1000 to 1200 AD. Vayu Puran 350 to 550 AD. Vishnu Puran 300. Listen to this. According to even Bibek Debroy, he's saying Vishnu Puran that we have today is written sometime between 300 BC to 450 AD. Bhavishya Puran 500 to 1900 AD. Reiterating once again that there is no great precision in these ranges, by this reckoning, the Vishnu Puran is the oldest and some parts of the Bhavishya Puran are as recent as the 19th century. Yeah. As mentioned earlier, there is no critical edition for the Puranas. Therefore, one has to choose a Sanskrit text one is going to translate from. If one is going to translate all the Puranas, it is preferable, though not essential, that one opts for a common source for all the Purana texts. The common source for the Brahma Puran and all the Purana translations is one brought out by Nag publishers with funding from the Ministry of Human Resource Development. To the best of my knowledge, other than this translation, there is only one unabridged translation of the Brahma Puran in English. Which one is that? The Brahma Mahapuranam, Nag Publishers, Delhi, 1985. I see. Who did that? Okay. That one is called the Brahma Puran, Part 1 to 4, translated by a board of scholars, Motilal Banarsidas Publishers, Delhi, 1985 to 86. Okay. That one is the other unabridged Brahma Puran translation. Though this translation was undertaken by a board of scholars, a discerning reader who compares the two translations will find that we have differed from this earlier translation in interpreting some verses and words. For some Puranas, the range of possible dates of composition, as indicated above, is narrow. Agni, Brahmanda, Garuda, Kurma, Matsya, Varaha, Vayu and Vishnu are examples. The range is, however, extremely wide for Brahma Puran, which is 700 AD to 1500 AD. There clearly was an original Brahma Puran, large chunks of which have been lost. In other words, the present Brahma Puran might not be the same as the original Brahma Puran, which has been lost. R.C. Hajra's dissertation is still one of the best introductions to the Purana corpus for all the Puranas, not just the Brahma Purana. Quote, it is a general belief that the present Brahma Puran is the original one, the peculiarity being that it has suffered through additions and losses. This belief is at the base of almost all statements that have been made so long by scholars about its date and authoritativeness. From an examination of the Puranas and the Smriti Nibandhas, however, it has been found that the present Brahma Purana is not the original one, but is merely an Upapurana of the same title, and that it was known as such even as later as in the 16th century AD, if not later. Almost all the Nibandha writers have profusely drawn upon the Brahma Puran or Brahma, which was therefore one of the most authoritative works in the whole range of Puranic literature. But curiously enough, not a single one of the numerous quotations made is traceable in the present Brahma Puran. The apocryphal Brahma Puran, with its borrowed and non-borrowed chapters, does not seem to have been composed or rather compiled earlier than the beginning of the 10th century AD. Had it been composed earlier, it should have been drawn upon or at least referred to by the Nibandha writers earlier than the middle of the 13th century. The determination of the date of composition of the chapters of Purushottama Kshetra Mahatmya is rather difficult. They could not possibly have been written earlier than the end of the 9th century AD, because there is no mention of the Shiva temple at the side of the Markandeya lake. This temple was built in 820 AD by Kundala Kesarin, king of Orissa. Again, the expensive stone temple which mythical king Indradyumna is said to have built at Purushottama Kshetra may be identical with that built by Anantavarman Kodaganga, Saka 998 to 1069, one of the eastern Ganga kings of Orissa. We cannot, however, put much stress on this supposition, because it is not known definitely that there was no Vishnu temple at Puri before the time of Anantavarman Kodaganga. It is extremely difficult to prove that the sun temple mentioned by the Brahma Purana is the same as that built between 1240 to 1251 AD by Narasimha Deva I of the Ganga dynasty of Orissa. It is therefore highly probable that there was already an ancient sun temple at Konark before 1240 AD, and Narasimha Deva I either built another which has superseded the ancient temple in its fame and glory, or rebuilt the ancient one, which can be expected to have been in a dilapidated condition. Stated simply, there are sections on Purushottama Kshetra and Jagannatha underlining the lower end of the range of 1500 AD. There are references to Indradyumna and Konarka, the present temple having been built around 1250 CE, though an earlier temple might have existed at the same site. However, there are also sections that are of earlier vintage. There is a question of the relative superiority of Shiva and Surya vis-a-vis Vishnu. For example, the Brahma Purana has 108 of Surya's names. There are chapters that are verbatim reproductions of sections from the Mahabharata. Harivamsha, there are chapters in Brahma Purana which are verbatim reproductions of sections from the Mahabharata, Harivamsha and other Puranas. But there are also sections on Surya that are new. One should not deduce that the Brahma Purana copied from these texts, since these various texts might have had a common origin. This is fascinating stuff. The sections on Utkala read like a Sthala Purana, because they are specifically just describing the geography. कि ऐसा पहाड़ था, ऐसा नदी था वहाँ पे. The sections on Utkala read like a Sthala Purana, not deserving of the status of a Mahapurana. To compound matters, there is the Gautami Mahatmya section about the greatness of the river Gautami or Godavari. This too has the attribute of a Sthala Purana and is different in nature from the rest of the Brahma Purana. Should it at all have been included in a translation of the Brahma Purana? We have decided to include it because it is part of the Brahma Purana text published by Nag Publishers. It was also included in the Brahma Purana translation undertaken earlier by the Board of Scholars. Accordingly, we have labeled the main Brahma Purana text as part 1 of the text and the Gautami Mahatmya section as part 2 of the text. So, okay, basically today what we are going to start is the Gautami Mahatmya section. Interesting. Okay. As mentioned earlier, the Brahma Purana text is believed to possess 10,000 shlokas. Part 1, the main portion of the text, has 9,137 shlokas, fairly close to the cited number of 10,000. Part 2 has 4,681 shlokas, with an aggregate of 13,818 shlokas for the entire text. There are 138 chapters in Part 1 and 105 in Part 2, a total of 243 chapters for the entire text. In numbering the chapters, the first, okay, this is not relevant to you all. Chapter 230 means the 35th chapter of Part 2, while part of the Brahma Purana. Okay, while parts of the Brahma Purana were composed by those familiar with the region of Utkala and Dandakaranya, Chapter 1.23 reveals some familiarity with other parts of the country too. In the translations of the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, the Harivamsha, the Valmiki Ramayana, the Bhagavad Purana and the Markandeya Purana, we followed the principle of not using diacritical marks. The use of diacritical marks effectively the international alphabet of Sanskrit transliteration makes the pronunciation and rendering more accurate, but also tends to put off readers who are less academically inclined. Okay, this is what we are discussing every day, that we are having a problem while discussing the Brahma Purana because of not having the that overhead, the line that we have on top of the A, which tells us that the pronunciation is supposed to be A and not A. And they are saying, Bibek Debroy has specifically deliberately not put that, because he's saying that it somehow makes the casual reader less interested or it confuses them. I guess, yeah, you could say that we are now a little familiar with reading Sanskrit translations, and that's why we are in fact missing that extra tool we could have used to understand what is exactly the pronunciation. This is unfortunate. Since diacritical marks are not being used, there is a challenge of rendering Sanskrit names in English. Sanskrit is a phonetic language, and we have used that principle as a basis. Applied consistently, this means that words are rendered in ways that may seem unfamiliar. Hence, Gautama will appear as Gautama here. This is true of proper names and, in a few rare cases, of geographical names. The absence of diacritical marks causes some minor problems. How does one distinguish between Vasudeva Krishna from Krishna's father and Vasudeva? How does one distinguish Vasudeva Krishna from Krishna's father Vasudeva? Often the context will make the difference clear. If not, we have written the son as Vasudeva and the father as Vasudeva. In translating, the attempt has been to provide a word-for-word translation so that if one were to hold up the Sanskrit text, there would be a perfect match. In the process, the English is not as smooth as it might have been, deliberately so. The intention is also to offer a translation, not an interpretation. That sounds like a simple principle to adopt and for the most part is easy to follow. However, there is a thin dividing line between translation and interpretation. In some instances, it is impossible to translate without bringing in a little bit of interpretation. Inevitably, interpretation is subjective. We have tried to minimize the problem by A. Reducing interpretation, B. By relegating interpretation to footnotes, and C. By, when there are alternative interpretations, pointing this out to the reader through those footnotes, which we discuss anyway. But all said and done, there is no substitute to reading these texts in the original Sanskrit. To the average person, the name of the Brahma Purana may not be as familiar as that of the Bhagavad Purana or the Markandeya Purana, but it is an important Purana. Therefore, it is worth reading and translating. Now we start Brahma Purana part 1 of Brahma Purana, chapter 113. Okay. So when is the part 2? We are still in part 1, guys. So this is not the Gautami Mahatmya. Let me see the contents page. Where is part 2? Part 2 starts in page 143, I see. Okay. So we are still in specifically what is called Brahma Purana. Here, this part is the Gautami Mahatmya. Okay, let me have some green tea and check some comments. First, everyone doesn't read or even listen to Jaipur dialogues. Second, left just doesn't accept it. Otherwise, they can't exist in political sphere. Yes. I'm a Hindu only because of Arya Samaj. Interesting. 19th century. I was born sometime from 1500 to 2500 AD. Yes, actually that's true. Bhavishya Puran mein Patarbaz ka zikr hai. Yes, that's why it's pretty new. Yeah, of course. It's more like Naya, not Purana. After listening to these Purana sessions, I have realized that most of Hinduism practice today is based on Puranas and not Vedas. And yeah, that is what Bibek Debroy is also pointing out. Yeah. And actually, that's also some commies are also saying that, isn't it? That lady who does English mantras for weddings, she's also calling herself a Boidik Purohit, okay? And she's doing Boidik Bibaho, okay? So she's saying that what is all this patriarchal nonsense that has come out of Puranas? We are doing the real Hinduism that comes out of Vedas. So they have found a cleavage line between even Puranas versus Vedas. Now fight amongst yourself. Puranvadi Hindu and Vedvadi Hindu, okay? Let them fight. Why Purana is called Purana? Puranas were not old when they were written, right? They were not called Purana then when they were written. They were later named Purana. These are the confusing things. So yeah, that would be a good question, that when they were being written, what were they called? What a weird problem. Okay, so virtuous practices. Vyasa said, in this way, a householder must properly worship the gods and the ancestors with Havya and Kavya, which we discussed yesterday. We discussed the Shraddha ceremonies and exactly how to do them, the Vidhi, etc. Guests, relatives, servants, all other beings like animals, birds, ants, mendicants who seek alms, and travelers who come to the house must be offered food. O Brahmanas, this is good conduct for virtuous householders. If one transgresses Nitya and Naimittika rights, one commits a sin. The sages asked, O Brahmanas, you have spoken about Nitya and Naimittika rights. The tasks undertaken by a man are of three types: Nitya, Naimittika, and Kamya. O sage, we wish to hear about Sadachara. Please tell us, what are these, enabling a man to obtain happiness in this world and in the next one? So, Sadachara is good behavior. Sat Achara. Vyasa replied, a householder must always examine his conduct. A man devoid of good conduct does not obtain benefit in this world or in the next one. Sacrifices, donations, and austerities do not bring benefit to a man who transgresses the norms of Sadachara. A person with good conduct obtains a long lifespan like that of Brahma. Tasks that have Dharma and Sadachara should be the signs of conduct. O Brahmanas, I will tell you about the nature of good conduct. One must follow these with single-minded attention. A person who is a householder must seek to attain the three objectives, Dharma, Artha, Kama. Thereby, a householder obtains success in this world and also obtains success in the world hereafter. A person who knows himself should use 1/4 of what he possesses for the world hereafter, meaning spend 1/4 of the wealth on Dharma. Okay, 1/4 of the wealth on Dharma. He should use half to sustain himself and for Nitya and Naimittika rights. The remaining quarter should be used to increase the original wealth. Okay, reinvest your capital. This is what they're saying. Oh Brahmanas. Okay, let me just underline this part. Remaining quarter should be used to increase the original wealth. Keep compounding your profits. O Brahmanas, if he acts in this way, the Artha becomes successful. To counter sins, a learned person must indulge in acts of Dharma. Such tasks undertaken for the next world also bring success in this world. Depending on what one desires, conduct to accomplish the three objectives are of two contrary types, those that are desirable and those that are perverse. Since they are linked to each other, one must think about each of these. O supreme among Brahmanas, understand the ones that are perverse in nature. Artha that is pursued for Dharma is good, but Artha that is not used for Dharma causes suffering to one's own self. Similarly, Dharma is of two types and Kama is also of two types. One must get up at the time of Brahma Muhurta and think about Dharma and Artha. Okay. A Muhurta is a period of 48 minutes. Brahma Muhurta is named after Brahma and is an auspicious time just before dawn, regarding as the last Muhurta of the night. The precise hour depends on the time when the sun rises. Okay. After getting up, one must perform one's ablutions. One must control oneself and bathe and purify oneself. This is the time of the morning Sandhya, when the nakshatras are still in the western horizon. Sandhya is the intervening period between day and night. The morning Sandhya is dawn, the evening Sandhya is dusk, midday is also referred to as Sandhya. A nakshatra is an asterism. It is usually a star but can also be a collection of stars. As is proper, he should worship them along with the sun. He should drink water or take food only after this. He must avoid lies, excessive talk, and false and harsh words. O Brahmanas, he must avoid wicked texts and the service of those who are wicked. He must always control himself and offer oblations in the morning and in the evening. At the time of sunrise and sunset, he must not look at the sun. Some tasks must be performed in the forenoon: cleaning the hair while looking at a mirror, brushing the teeth and washing the mouth and offering oblations to the gods. Urine and excrement must not be released in habitations within villages, tirthas, fields, along roads and in pastures and pens of cows. Tirthas in this case meaning a sacred place of pilgrimage, okay, where there is water, okay. One should not look at another person's wife when she is naked or at one's own excrement. And one should not look at one's own excrement. One should not see, touch, or converse with a woman who is going through her period. One should not release urine or excrement in water or indulge in sexual intercourse inside water. One should not stand on urine, excrement, hair, ashes, or the sharp edges of swords. A wise person will not stand on husk, burning coal, bits of ropes, and garments that are strewn along the path or are lying on the ground. A householder should eat only after he has worshipped the gods, the ancestors, humans, and other creatures according to his wealth. Purifying himself. After rinsing his mouth and maintaining silence, a man must eat his food while seated facing the east or the north. He must always face his hands on his knees. Okay? He must always place his hands on his knees except when the food is tainted. A learned person will not point out defects in the food. He should avoid the direct use of salt and should not eat leftover food. Interesting. Uchishta, stale or leftover food. Okay. Should not use direct salt. Okay. Like even high pressure doctors say that do not eat raw salt, only use salt in cooking. A self-controlled man will not pass urine or excrement while he is standing or walking. He will never eat anything that has been touched by Uchishta. If he has eaten anything that is Uchishta, he will avoid studying then. He will not willfully look at the sun, the moon, or the nakshatras. If a seat, a bed, or a vessel is broken, he must not use it. A person must stand up and offer his guru his own seat. An intelligent person will always converse kindly with them. Okay. People like a guru. Guru means preceptor as well as a senior. Okay, these are addressed for Western audiences, I guess. He must always follow them and not act against them. Clad in a single garment, one should not eat or worship the gods. O Brahmanas, without a fire, an intelligent person will not offer oblations. A man must never bathe or sleep naked. When he scratches his head, he must not use both of his hands together. Without examining it and without any reason, a learned person does not wash his hand or does not wash his head. Okay? Without examining it and without any reason, a learned person does not wash his head. After the head has been washed, he must not allow oil to touch any of his limbs. One must avoid studying on any of the days when studying is prohibited. One must never show disrespect to Brahmanas, the fire, cows, or the sun. During the day, urine and excrement must be released while facing the north. During the night, it should be the south. However, at a time when there is some impediment, they can be released as one wishes. One should not speak about any wicked deed a guru may have done. When he is angry, one should placate him. One should not listen to those who slander him. The right of path should be given to Brahmanas, the king, those who are miserable and afflicted, to those who are superior in learning, pregnant women, to those who are suffering from disease, those who are greater, the deaf, mute and blind, and to those who are intoxicated or mad. इन लोगों के लिए रास्ता छोड़ना है. A learned person must perform pradakshina. Pradakshina is an act of circumambulation. Okay, you all know what pradakshina is. A learned person must perform pradakshina of a temple, a tree in a chaitya, a crossroads where four roads meet, and a guru who is superior in learning. So a tree in chaitya has several meanings: sacrificial shed, temple, altar, sanctuary, and a tree that grows along the road. All these are tree in a chaitya. One should not wear footwear, garments, or garlands worn by another. On the 8th, 14th, or 15th lunar day or on auspicious days, one should not smear the limbs with oil. On these days, one must also avoid intercourse with a woman. A wise person will never sit with his legs or feet extended. One should not fling one's legs around. Nor should one rub one leg against another leg. He should avoid the use of harsh words to revile and pierce the inner organs of a pumshchali. A pumshchali is a loose woman in a specific sense. Svarinis are loose women who have sex with anyone they want, but only those from the same varna. Kaminis are loose women who have sex with anyone they want, irrespective of varna. Why would someone name their daughter Kamini then? Pumshchalis have no sense of discrimination and are almost like harlots. Okay. So he should avoid the use of harsh words to revile and pierce the inner organs of a Pumshchali, a child or a fallen person who has performed a misdeed. A discriminating person should never be insolent. So pedophilia is basically being suggested against. A discriminating person should never be insolent, proud or harsh. He should not laugh at or revile those who are stupid, mad, distressed, malformed, suffering from delusion, lacking a limb, or a poor person. A discriminating person actually here means one who has the authority to discriminate. So basically Brahmins. We had discussed it in the previous volume as well. He should not impose punishment on anyone else, nor for the sake of instructions should he punish a son or a disciple. When he is about to sit, a wise person will not drag the seat towards him with a foot. He should not prepare samyava, let's see what does it mean, made out of wheat, flour, sugar, ghee and milk. Samyava and krisara. Krisara is a dish made out of sesamum and grain. He should not prepare samyava and krisara or flesh for himself. In the morning and in the evening he should eat only after the guests have been honored. Without speaking, he must clean his teeth with his face towards the east or the north. O Brahmanas, forbidden wood must never be used for cleaning the teeth. A man must not sleep with his head facing the north or the west. One should sleep with the head facing the south or the east. One should not bathe in the water that smells, nor should one bathe at night. Bathing at night is permissible only on days when there is an eclipse. After bathing, one should not use one's hand or a piece of cloth to wipe the water from the body. After bathing, one should not get rid of the water by shaking one's head or shaking one's garment. Unless he has bathed, a learned person will never apply unguents on his body. He should not wear a red garment, a black garment, or a garment that is multicolored. Garments or ornaments must not be contrary to the rules. A damaged or torn garment must never be used. One should not eat food that has hair or lice in it, food that has been trodden upon, or food that a dog has looked at. One should avoid meat licked by a dog, meat where the essence has been tainted, the flesh from the back and flesh cooked in vain. A man should not use salt directly. A flesh cooked in vain means a flesh that was without the intention of offering it as a sacrifice. Okay. A flesh that was not cooked with the intention of sacrifice, offering it as a sacrifice, should not be eaten. So only वही meat जो कि पशु बलि से आया है. A man should not use salt directly. O Brahmanas, food that has been left for a long time, food that is dry or is tainted in any other way, must also be avoided. O Supreme Brahmanas, however, derived products of cakes, vegetables, sugarcane and milk, and derived products of meat need not be avoided even if they have been left for a very long time. One should not sleep between sunrise and sunset. A man must not sleep after a bath. He should not sleep when his mind is distracted. He should not sleep when seated. When he sits down or when he lies down, he must not make a sound. A man must not eat without giving a share to those who are looking. According to the injunctions, he must eat after he has bathed in the morning and in the evening. A learned man will not have intercourse with another person's wife. If a man has intercourse with another man's wife, his good merits from sacrifices and civic works are destroyed. In this world, there is nothing that is as destructive of a man's lifespan as having intercourse with another person's wife. After properly and reverentially performing achamana, one should perform the rites for the gods, the fire, and the ancestors, and greet the Guru. The act of taking food must be done only after this. The water used for achman must be without foam, without a smell, and without dirt. The rinsing must be done with the head facing the north or the east. For cleaning oneself, 5 meaning after passing stool, okay? So, for cleaning oneself after passing stool, 5 kinds of earth must be avoided: earth from inside a water body, earth from the habitation, from a termite hill, from a rat hole, and leftover earth from an earlier act of cleaning. After cleaning oneself, the hands and the feet must be cleaned attentively, seated with his knees next to each other. A man must sip water 3 or 4 times. He must touch his limbs and his head with the water twice. With these rites, he purifies himself properly with water. After sneezing, spitting, or wearing a garment, a learned person must rinse his mouth. After sneezing, spitting, passing wind, or passing excrement, he must do this. When he touches something that should not be touched, he must perform Achman. Look at the sun and touch his right ear to the extent that he can. So pull your right ear as to the extent that you can. He must follow this in the due order. If one act in the order is missing, he should proceed with the next one. It is said that if a preceding act is missing, one should proceed with the subsequent one. One should not gnash one's teeth, GNASH. One should not gnash one's teeth, nor should one strike one's own body. At the time of the 2 sandhyas, one should not sleep, study, or eat. One should not indulge in sexual intercourse or depart at the time of sandhya. In the afternoon, one should not faithfully offer oblations. In the afternoon, one should faithfully offer oblations to the ancestors. This is also true of washing the head or performing rites for the gods and the ancestors. Shaving must be done while facing the north or the east. Even when she has been born in a good lineage, a woman who is diseased without a limb or malformed in a limb must be avoided. The girl one marries should not be related on the father's side for 7 generations and on the mother's side for 5 generations. It is necessary to avoid all jealousy and protect the wife. Sleep and sexual intercourse during the day must be avoided. Acts that cause torment to others and affliction to creatures must always be shunned. During the 4 days when a woman goes through her period, all the varnas must avoid association with her. If the birth of a daughter is to be avoided, one must avoid intercourse on the 5th night and indulge in it on the 6th night. Even nights are the best. Even nights are best, not odd nights. So even nights are the best. Boys are born through intercourse on even nights and girls through intercourse on odd nights. Intercourse on festive days, meaning Parva days or Parvan days. Intercourse on festive days gives birth to a son who is against Dharma. What? Intercourse on festive days gives birth to a son who is against Dharma. Intercourse in the evening gives birth to a eunuch. When shaving, a discriminating person will avoid a desolate spot. One should never listen to what insolent people say. An excellent seat should never be affectionately offered to a person who is not excellent. O Brahmanas, a wise person has a bath after shaving, after intercourse with a woman, after vomiting, and after visiting a cremation ground. O Brahmanas, the gods, the Vedas, Brahmanas, virtuous and great-souled ones, preceptors, women who are faithful to their husbands, those who perform sacrifices and ascetics must not be criticized, nor should one laugh at them. One should wear white garments and adorn oneself with white flowers. One must always be clad in what is auspicious, never in something that is inauspicious. A learned person must never associate with or contract a friendship with a person who is insolent, mad, foolish, proud, wicked in conduct, those who are defiled because of age and class, those who spend excessively, men who are enemies, those who are unskilled in their work, those who are censured, those who associate with rogues, those who are without money, men who are addicted to arguing, and those who are debased in any other way. Torkalanka Torkoratno, addicted to arguing. One should stand up and greet well-wishers, those who have been initiated, and greet those and the king and snatakas, the graduates, and the father-in-law when they visit the house, and using words of welcome. O Brahmanas, so saying Swagatam basically. O Brahmanas, one should offer them proper hospitality according to one's means. Yeah. When they have stayed for more than a year and they return to their own residences, they must be honored in the proper way. After having honored them in the due order, He must worship the fire, progressively rendering oblations to it. The first offering must be given to Brahma, the second to Prajapati, the third to the divinities in the house, the fourth to Kashyapa, and the last to Anumati. Anumati is the personified form of the 15th lunar Tithi. This is the way offerings must be made in the house. I have already described to you the recommended Nitya rituals, O Brahmanas. Hear about how offerings must be made to the Vishwadevas. In separate regions, there must be separate offerings for the divinities. 3 offerings must be made to Parjanya, the earth, and the water pot. We have translated Manika as water pot. The word also means jewel. Manika, yeah, money se Manika. After this, an offering will be given to Vayu, and beginning with the east, each cardinal direction must progressively be given offerings. Progressive offerings are rendered to Brahma, the sky, the sun, the Vishwadevas, and all the creatures in the universe. Purifying oneself, offerings are given to Usha, the personified form of dawn. Yeah. Purifying oneself, offerings are given to Usha and the lord of creatures. So, yeah, Shiva. The word used is Bhutapati in the northern direction. Uttering Swadhacha Namaha, offerings to the ancestors are given in the southern direction. Swadha, I bow down to you too. Swadhacha Namaha. Swadha is an exclamation made when offering oblations to the ancestors. Swaha is an exclamation made when offering oblations to the gods. Okay, so Swadha is for ancestors, Swaha is for gods. This I never knew. Using his right hand, he will then follow the rituals. Take the remaining bit of food and water and offer it in the northwestern direction to Vayu, uttering to Yakshama. Loosely, the sense is that let disease be kept away. Okay. Thereafter, he will prostrate himself before the gods and the Brahmanas. For Achman, Brahma Tirtha is the line at the base of the right thumb. I see. That is the Brahma Tirtha. The Tirthas are parts of the hand sacred to specific divinities. The region between the right thumb and the right index finger is said to be Pitri Tirtha. With the exception of the Nandimukha ritual, this is used to offer water to the ancestors. Nandimukhas are a special class of ancestors, and the Nandimukha rite is for them. The tips of the fingers are known as Deva Tirtha and are used for rites connected with the gods. The base of the little finger is known as Kaya Tirtha and is used for rites connected with Prajapati. The rites for the gods and the ancestors must always be performed with these tirthas, and an inappropriate tirtha must never be used. Brahma Tirtha is best for Achman. Okay. And Pitri Tirtha must always be used for the ancestors. Deva Tirtha must be used for the gods, and Kaya Tirtha must be used for rites connected with Prajapati. During the Nandimukha ritual, a wise person will use Kaya Tirtha to perform the Pinda and water rites. Everything connected with Prajapati must be through Kaya Tirtha. A discriminating person must not hold water and fire at the same time. In front of gurus, gods, ancestors, and brahmanas, he will not stretch out his legs. He glances towards a cow that is suckling her calf. Meaning, he should not call the cow at that time. So he should just look at it. He should not drink water from the cup of his palms. The rites of purification, whether the transgression is major or minor, must be undertaken at the right time. An intelligent person will not delay the rite of purification. One should not use one's mouth to blow into a fire. O Brahmanas, one should not reside in a region that does not have 4 things, which is a person who lends money, a physician, a learned Brahmana, and a river full of water. Yeah, nice. A wise person will always reside in a place where there is a powerful king who is devoted to Dharma and has control over his servants. How can there be happiness when the king is wicked? There is happiness from residing in a place where self-controlled citizens always follow law and the people are devoid of jealousy and are tranquil in peace. A discriminating person should live in a kingdom where the farmers are generally strong and not excessively proud, where there is no dearth of crops and medicinal herbs. O Brahmanas, one should never live in a place where three kinds of people exist: those who are always eager to conquer, those who are always addicted to festivities, and those who are former enemies. A learned person will always reside with companions who are good in conduct. O Brahmanas, for the sake of your welfare, I have described all this to you. Let me take a break. This subchapter is still going on. Yeah, okay, just 2.5 pages left. Let me drink some tea and let me check some comments. Yeah, this is some graphic description. Maybe the Black Death didn't plague Bharat due to extreme cleanliness obsession. We taught the world to bathe. This is a bit misogynist, yes. Many parts are written for men audience. Even in Chandi Part, Rupam Dehi, Jayam Dehi, there's Bharyam Dehi, but not Varam Dehi. That's why in Chandi Part, Tvam Swaha, Tvam Swadha, Tvam Hi. Okay. Which means either we offer yagya to ancestors or to the gods. Devi is the supreme enjoyer of yagya. Yeah. And also Shiva is called Yagyamaya. Lol, on Twitter, Trudeau supporters and libtards getting trolled and blocking Indians. Trudeau and his minions crying. Yeah, they are so screwed. And yesterday, Kushal Mehra wrote this, tweeted this out, and I was thinking this and saying this to a friend that the shock that Canadians are receiving, man, it's a shock to their very existence, to every fiber of their being. They are shaking with shock. They are basically quivering that what the fuck is going on? Who are these people engulfing all our discourse? Because they are not used to these things. They are not used to getting countered by anyone outside the West in such big numbers and in English, right? It usually happens with some 2 or 3 Marxist scholars saying that you guys are so racist, etc. Or some commies inside their country saying that our past is so tainted, etc. Now one entire fucking gigantic population in English debating them and all day long, retweeting and quoting them and commenting the fuck out of their tweets. They have never handled this shit. Okay, so thank Elon Musk and who's the Ambani now running? Anil Ambani or Mukesh Ambani. Okay, I keep forgetting these names. So Mukesh Ambani and Elon Musk have made this possible, guys. There would be no such counter without these two people. Just these two industrialists, these two capitalists have made this possible. So did Devis and Devas also require materialism? What was requirement of yagya? No, Devis and Devas don't require materialism. The Brahmins who will do the pujas require that material. But if the Brahmins don't do that, or if you don't approach Brahmins to do the yagyas for you, Devis and Devas don't give a shit. They are happy. They are chill. I think Black Death and other plagues had already gone through Indian civilizations earlier than 10,000 years, which is why India is not affected too much by plagues. I think plagues come repeatedly. Plagues will come repeatedly, and before 10,000 years, what are pishachas? They are bad energies and bad entities, negative entities, right? Devtas are the good entities, harmless, nice entities. Okay, to continue. Okay, I will next tell you about food and about how it is to be taken. Stale rice, even if it has been kept for a long time, can be eaten as long as it is soaked in oil. So, fried rice. Soaked in oil, so not fried really. Products of wheat, barley and milk, when kept for a long time, can be eaten without being soaked in oil. The meat of hares, so rabbits, tortoises, lizards, porcupines and fish with scales can be eaten. Officially, meat is being sanctioned, okay, in a Purana, guys. This should end debates. I am against meat eating, but at least one major text is saying, which is written 1000 years from today at least, is saying that these meat are allowed. There's no hard and fast rule about vegetarianism in Hinduism. However, the meat of domesticated pigs and domesticated hens should not be eaten. So, free-range chicken is out of the question. There is no taint from eating meat that is left over after the offerings to the gods and ancestors or at Shraddha ceremonies in accordance with the wishes of Brahmanas once it has been purified by sprinkling water over it, or meat that is for medication. Conch shells, stones, gold, silver, ropes, garments, vegetables, roots, fruits, wicker work meaning small baskets, etc. Oh, wicker work baskets, yeah, it's mentioned only. Leather objects, jewel encrusted garments, coral, pearls, and vessels and spoons are also best cleaned with water. So, leather objects. What was this leather made out of? Deer skin, probably. Iron is cleaned with water, stone through rubbing, and oily vessels cleaned by with warm water. Winnowing baskets, deer skin, mortars, pestles, and heaps of garments are cleaned by sprinkling water over the collection. All kinds of bark are properly cleaned with water and earth. Objects made of wool or hair are cleaned with kalka paste. Kalka paste kya hai? A paste made out of the sediment of oily substances, and then with the oil of sesamum seeds. Okay, I keep forgetting, what is sesamum, guys? There is so many countless mentions of sesamum in Brahma Puran. What is their obsession with sesamum? Is it a common seed? Pen ka kya hua? Lo, my pen is dried up once. Wait a bit. Can't find any of my pens. Nice. Okay, hello guys, hello. We have already found antibiotic resistant bugs in Gujarat, and more are being found which are older than 10,000 plus years. So yes, we have been through plague similar to black plague. That's why in old times in Bengal we ate mutton, but chicken was prohibited. Chicken is favorite food for most non-veg Hindus. TMC ka spy. Yeah, especially chicken breasts, very easy source of protein for muscle building. Yes. AIM had mentioned this, that mutton is allowed but chicken is not. Sesamum is til and nadu. Til is sesamum, and tishi is the other great source of omega, right? Have you watched Sahibs 2? No, I have not yet. It released already, or what? It released in their own OTT, no? It did not release in their YouTube, I guess. Okay. There must always be purification and cleansing. Thus, a cotton garment is always purified with water and ashes. Objects made of ivory, bones, or horn are purified through paring. An earthen vessel is purified when it is baked again. Something obtained as alms, an object fashioned through the hand of an artisan, an article traded and a woman's mouth are pure. Something brought along a road, an object that is unknown, something that has been cleaned by a retinue of servants, something that has been praised earlier, something that is long past, an object that has passed through many hands, a light object, something that has many children inside it, something for which aged people have made efforts, a store of coal when the required task is over, and the two breasts of a woman are pure. Odorless water that has a flow is said to be pure. The ground is purified over time, and when cattle roam over it. A dwelling house is purified by smearing, scraping, sprinkling, and sweeping. Okay, so smearing what? Smearing with cow dung. Okay. Something tainted with hair, worms, or flies, or smelt by cattle is purified with earth, water, and ashes. Objects made of udumbara, meaning the fig tree, udumbara wood are cleaned. Objects made out of udumbara wood are cleaned with acid. Those made of tin through a caustic solution, those of copper with water and ashes, and through repeated washing. What is the acid they are talking about, I wonder? Something with a bad smell is purified by using earth and water to remove the bad smell. Other objects are thus purified when their bad complexion and bad odor has been removed. Meat dropped by a Chandala. One usually equates Chandala with Shudra, but there were 8 different types of Shudras, though the listing varies. For instance, Vyadha, hunter, Vyalagrahi, those who eat snakes, Vagatita, one with whom one does not speak, Chandala, who has a Brahmana mother and a Shudra father, and so on. Brahmana mother and Shudra father. How would they get married? So they are probably that eloping. I guess it's called Rakshasa Vivaha. There is one specific Vivaha for eloping as well, right? Yeah, and I think we read this in Manusmriti that their children are called Chandala. Then no, we read it in Brahma Purana only in the previous volume. So meat dropped by a Chandala or a predatory creature is pure. Oil that has spilt on the road is pure. Water that satisfies a cow is pure. Dust particles, a fire, a horse, a cow, a shadow, rays meaning referring to the sun or the moon, the wind, the earth, and a drop of water do not get polluted even if they come into contact with something else, something vile like a fly. So, horse, fire, rays of the sun, moon, wind, earth, everything. The mouth of a goat or the mouth of a horse is pure. But this is not true of the mouth of a calf when its mother is still suckling it. A fruit brought down by a bird is pure. Like an object that is traded, a seat, a bed, a vehicle, the bank of a river, and grass are pure because the rays of the sun and the moon fall on them and the air passes over them. After traveling on the road, bathing, eating, drinking, and other tasks, one must change one's garment and perform achman. If one comes into contact with a bad road, mud and water, or an object made of brick or clay, nothing need be done. They are purified by the wind. If a large quantity of rice has been tainted, a bit from the top should be thrown away. The remainder is purified by sprinkling some earth and water on it. If one eats something that should not be eaten, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, to atone for this sin, one should fast for 3 nights. If a person touches a woman who is going through her period, a woman who has touched her, a woman who has just delivered, an outcast, or one who has borne a dead body, he must purify himself by having a bath. If a Brahman touches a human bone that has fat in it, he is purified by bathing. However, if he touches a human bone without fat, he should perform achman, touch a cow, and look at the sun. A wise person will never walk over blood or spit or leap over an obstacle. Leftovers, urine, excrement, and water used to wash the feet must be cast away outside the house. One should not bathe in another person's water without taking up 5 pindars of clay from there. One should bathe in natural ponds, meaning literally those dug by the gods. One should bathe in natural ponds, the Ganga, and rivers and lakes. A wise person will not remain in gardens and similar places at the wrong time. One should not converse with those who are hated by people or with women who do not have brave sons. One should not touch or have a conversation with those who criticize the gods, the ancestors, the sacred texts, sacrifices, and sannyasis. If one happens to touch or converse with them, one should purify oneself by looking at the sun. A wise person who looks at a woman going through her period, an abandoned dead body that has been cast away, a person who is against Dharma, a woman who has just delivered, a eunuch, a naked person, an outcast, looking at an outcast, okay? A person who carries dead bodies or an adulterer should purify himself in the same way. When a person who knows about Dharma touches a mendicant who should not be fed, a heretic, a cat, an ass, a cock, a person who has fallen down, a chandala, or a person who carries a dead body, a woman during her period, or a village pig, he is purified by taking a bath. This must also be done if a person touches a woman who has just delivered, a man who is tainted and polluted in this way, a person who does not perform the daily nitya tasks in his home, a person who has been abandoned by brahmanas, or a worst among men, who lives on sin. The nitya rites must never suffer. I will tell you about the only occasions when they need not be performed. In the case of birth and death, a brahmana can refrain from donations and offering oblations for 10 days. A kshatriya can refrain from nitya rites for 12 days. A vaishya can avoid doing nitya for 15 days, and a shudra can avoid doing it for a month. So even shudras are supposed to do nitya rites. Thereafter, as instructed, one should engage in one's own tasks. The dead body must be cremated outside the house by people who belong to the same gotra. After this, water is offered to the departed spirit on the first, third, seventh, or ninth day, depending respectively on the varna. On the fourth day, the ashes and bones meaning the asthi, of course, okay. On the fourth day, the ashes and asthi are collected by people who belong to the same gotra. After they have undertaken the task of collection, it is recommended that their upper bodies be touched. After the collection, all the rites should be performed by those who are from the same gotra. On the day of death, only sapindas are allowed to touch each other. There is a long list of those who are sapindas, such as in the absence of a son, a daughter's son, a father, a mother, a brother's son, and so on. There is another such list of sahodakas. When death is caused by a weapon, hanging by a rope, fire, or poison, the same method must be followed. When death occurs by an act of praya kya hai? Act of giving up one's life by fasting to death. When death occurs because of an act of praya, when the person dies when he is in some other country, or when the dead person is a child, the period of impurity lasts for 1 day, though some say impurity lasts for 3 days. Some say, there's no consensus. If a sapinda dies after another sapinda's death, the period of impurity is reckoned from the day on which the first sapinda died. The daily purification rites mentioned earlier must be performed. There are also recommended norms for a birth, to be followed after delivery by sapindas and sahodakas. When a son is born, a father must have a bath wearing the clothes he was wearing at the time of birth. Okay, when a son is born, a father must have a bath wearing the clothes he was wearing at the time of birth. If after the birth of the first son another son is born, the period of impurity is reckoned from the day of the first birth. After 10, 12, 15 days a month, as is obvious, the duration depends on the varna. All the varnas should be performed. Okay, so the 4 durations that we got are specific for different varnas: 10, 12, 15, and month. All the varnas should perform their respective recommended rites. Thereafter, for the departed spirit, an ekodishta ceremony must be performed. A monthly rite continued for 1 year is called ekodishta ceremony. As gifts to Brahmanas, learned people give whatever is cherished in the world and whatever is loved in the house. Desiring one's undecaying prosperity in the name of the departed spirits, one should give all that possesses qualities. When those days are over, one touches water, a mount, or a weapon. Each varna undertakes the proper completion of the rites. If one observes all the rites recommended and purifies oneself, one obtains prosperity in this world and in the next world. If one studies the 3 Vedas every day, one becomes learned. Having accumulated riches according to Dharma, one must make efforts to undertake sacrifices. O Brahmanas, one must act so that one is not condemned. One must unhesitatingly do whatever need not be kept a secret from great people. O Brahmanas, if a householder acts in this way, he obtains dharma, artha, and kama in this world and all that is auspicious in the world hereafter. This is the secret to increasing the lifespan, prosperity, and intelligence. This is sacred and destroys all sins. This is auspicious and ensures prosperity, nourishment, and freedom from disease. It ensures fame and deeds and increases the strength and energy of men. O supreme among sages, it ensures the excellent objective of heaven, and men must always observe it, whether they are Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Shudras. Those who desire their benefit must carefully get to know everything about this. Having learnt it, a person must undertake it at the right time. He will then be freed from all sins and attain greatness in heaven. O excellent Brahmanas, you have been told about the essence of all essences. Essence of all essences. This is the dharma mentioned in the Shruti and Smriti texts. O Brahmanas, this must never be revealed to non-believers, those who are evil in intelligence, those who are insolent or foolish, and those who indulge excessively in false debates. Next subchapter is called the task tasks of varnas and ashramas. Oh, that was a long subchapter. We already read this much in one day. Let me check some comments again. Pure in the sense not carrying diseases, I guess. Not necessarily Rakshasa. There are few other weddings that are also eloping. I see. What's with the mouth of cattle? Untouchability against Chadvaka. Not untouchability really, but not talking to them. As many of these things will be called sexist casteist. Yes. Do you think polygamy among Hindus should be allowed? I think those that can should be allowed, as the female population is increasing and becoming self-sufficient. Most women go for the alphas. Thus, my thinking, do I think polygamy should be allowed? I don't think so, because almost every data that has come out since the concept of data was created about 150-200 years back shows that a child is healthiest, mentally stable, most successful on an average when it has one father and one mother at home. For those reasons, I'm against polygamy. Then the traditional marriage will be destroyed. AI will destroy it to a large extent, but those that resist will be destroyed anyway. No, there are other ways to prevent these things. Okay. The tasks of varnas and ashramas. The sages said, how long is the lifetime? Oh, just 1 hour 40 minutes. The sages said, O Brahmanas, we wish to hear about the specific dharma for different varnas. Okay, now we are basically going into Manusmriti territory. Specific dharma for different varnas. O noble Brahmana, please tell us about the dharma for the 4 ashramas. Vyasa replied, listen attentively. In due order, I will tell you about the dharma for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, and the dharma for the varnas. A Brahmana must always practice compassion, donations, austerities, sacrifices to gods, and self-studying. He must always observe the water rites and maintain the sacrificial fire. O Brahmanas, for the sake of subsistence, he will perform sacrifices for others. He will teach Brahmanas. In the case of sacrifices, he will consciously accept donations. O Brahmanas, he must always do what ensures benefit for everyone and never cause harm to anyone. Never cause harm to anyone. Of course, harm is subjective, because friendliness towards all creatures is the greatest wealth for a Brahmana. O Brahmanas, his intelligence must be such that he regards a cow and someone else's jewel as equal. O Brahmanas, when he has intercourse with his wife just after her period is over, that is praised. A Kshatriya will give Brahmanas whatever they wish for. O Brahmanas, he must study and perform different kinds of sacrifices. He must earn his living through weapons. Okay, so we are talking about Kshatriyas now. He must earn his living through weapons. Protecting the earth is the best means of subsistence for him. Protection of the earth has been thought of first. Lords of the earth have become successful in their objectives by protecting the earth. Where there is a king, sacrifices and other rights are protected. The task of a king is to punish the wicked and protect the virtuous. That is the way he establishes the varnas and attains the desired worlds. O supreme sages, Brahma, the grandfather of the worlds, gave Vaishyas animal husbandry, trade and agriculture as a means of subsistence. Studying, sacrifices and donations are also praised as dharma for them, as is the performance of Nitya, Naimittika and other rites. A Shudra's tasks derive from the sustenance of Dvijas. Dvija is sometimes used as a synonym for Brahmana, but it actually means a person who has had 2 births. You all know this. So basically all 3 varnas, all the top 3 varnas can be Dvijas. Sustenance of Dvijas. Therefore, he must give them whatever riches he earns through sale and purchase or artisanship in the form of donations. Okay. The Shudra must give them give the Dvijas whatever riches he earns through sale and purchase or artisanship in the form of donations. A Shudra must also perform all the rites for the ancestors and Paka Yagya. This has been interpreted as the recommended modes for cooking food offered at sacrifices. Paka. Yeah, pak means cooking. However, Paka Yagya also means a simple sacrifice undertaken at home, and that seems to be a better meaning. Is Ranna Pujo of Bengalis of this? Of course, that's not done by Shudras. It's done by everyone, I think. Ghotis, I guess. I don't know specifically who it is done by. Okay. O Supreme Brahmanas, the following are said to be general qualities of all the Varnas: receiving gifts for the sustainment of servants and others, approaching one's own wife at the time of her period, compassion towards all creatures, forbearance, lack of pride, truthfulness, the easy observance of purity, and everything auspicious, amiable speech, friendliness, lack of desire, lack of miserliness, and lack of jealousy. These are the general characteristics of all the ashramas. O Brahmanas, secondary dharma and qualities also exist for Brahmanas and others. When there is a calamity, a Brahmana can follow the tasks indicated for a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. In times of calamity, a Kshatriya can follow the tasks indicated for a Vaishya or a Shudra, and a Vaishya can follow the tasks indicated for a Shudra. So you all are allowed to or supposed to do the tasks below your Varna. A footnote is given. The word used is Rajanya, meaning royalty, but this means Kshatriya. Okay. O Brahmanas, if he is incapable, he can give up either. However, even in the case of a calamity, one must not mix up the two kinds of tasks. Meaning, that is, a Kshatriya must not simultaneously follow the tasks of both a Vaishya and a Shudra, because he has to follow whatever his Kshatriya dharma is to the extent possible during a calamity. O Brahmanas, I have thus described to you the dharma of the Varnas. Science says polygamy depends on size of nuts. Disagree with your view on polygamy. I think AI will help make it work. Look at how technology has changed our lives, even changing humans on a genetic level. Not all good, but it has changed us. Yes. But children will need two parents. Being a Brahmin as per Hindu text is on god level difficulty. So even Brahma Purana indirectly hints at birth based Varna. I don't know if it's birth based, but Varna system is definitely intact, of course. It does not matter if you are born in a certain Varna, you can change it by your deeds. Why do people overlook that points? Because Jivika is not the only aspect of Varna. That's why there's an argument for not being able to change your Varna. You can change your Jivika, not your Varna. AI can be a parental caretaker figure. Yes, but that AI will be trained on the models already existing. So unless there are, of course, there can be some Hindu scientist who has some proper understanding of Hindu texts. They can come up with proper Hindu modeled AIs. But that will lead to too much of homogeneity if we depend on AIs for parenting. Of course, there is some parenting already going on through the hands of social media celebrities, of course. But when it's AI, it's even more hard and fast. And that kind of homogeneity that's going to be caused in children is going to create a very stupid and dumb fuck of a society. There needs to be some space for individuality. And if they are trained by an AI, or maybe 2 or 3 AI products, let's say, they'll all turn out to be the same. AI will never be Hindu. If AI is never Hindu, then your problem is even bigger, because you are claiming that AI will become a replacement for parenting. Or are you saying that since AI will be a parent, therefore have polygamy instead? But I'm saying that when there is polygamy, children will not get the attention they deserve from just one father and one mother, because they'll have multiple mothers. Okay. I will now properly tell you about the dharma of the ashramas. Listen. After the sacred thread ceremony has been performed, a boy must study the Vedas. O Brahmanas, he will reside in his guru's house, controlling himself and practicing brahmacharya. His task there is to practice purity in conduct and serve his preceptor. He must observe the vows and turn his mind towards receiving the Vedas. O Brahmanas, he must control himself and worship the sun and the fire at the time of both the sandhyas. He must stand up and greet the preceptor. When the preceptor stands, he will stand. When the preceptor walks, he will walk. When the preceptor is seated, he will be seated below him. O best among Brahmanas, a disciple must avoid anything that is against the preceptor. He will stand in front of him and with a single-minded attention study the Vedas recited by him. By him meaning the preceptor, of course. When he is permitted by his preceptor, teacher, he will eat the food received as alms, ALMS, bhiksha. He will bathe in the water in which his teacher has bathed. He must be ready to collect kindling and water at dawn. Kindling meaning wood for fires, etc., for lighting a yajna. After having received the Vedas, he is entitled to receive a wise person will take, after having received the Vedas, he is entitled to receive. A wise person will take leave from his guru and having taken his leave will enter the stage of Garhasthya. Following the norms, he will obtain a wife and earn riches through his own tasks. O Brahmanas, according to his own capacity, he must perform all the tasks indicated for a householder. He must worship the ancestors, perform sacrifices to the gods, offer food to the guests, honor the sages by studying and have offspring to honor Prajapati. Through his offerings, he will honor creatures and through his true words, the entire world. He will honor the entire world. In this way, through his own clean deeds, a man obtains the worlds. There are those who follow brahmacharya and travel around while sustaining themselves on what is obtained as alms. They depend on the householder. Therefore, the stage of Garhasthya is the best. O Brahmanas, there are Brahmanas who roam around the earth, disseminating the Vedas, bathing in tirthas and visiting different places on earth. They have no fixed abode. When they are hungry in the evening, it is the householder who always offers them food and shelter. Therefore, it is said that they depend on the householder. A householder must welcome them with gifts and pleasant words. When they come to his house, he must offer them a bed, a seat and food. When a guest who has arrived at a house goes away dissatisfied, he leaves his bad deeds with the householder and takes away the householder's good deeds. For a householder, the following are never praised: disrespect to others, egotism, insolence, slander, causing harm, and harsh words. If a householder properly follows the supreme norms that have been indicated, he is freed from every kind of bondage and attains excellent worlds. O Brahmanas, when a householder is ripe and has completed all the tasks meant for a householder, he leaves for the forest. ये phase का नाम क्या है? I forgot. I read it in Manusmriti. The phase where you are a forest dweller. Vanaprastha, right? Yeah. He can entrust the care of his wife with his sons or take her with him. He survives on leaves, roots and fruits. Yes, we studied this in Manusmriti. He does not cut his hair or shave his beard and his hair is matted. O Brahmanas, like a sage, he lies down on the ground and can be a guest at anyone's house. His upper garment must be made of hide, so skin of some animal, kasha grass or kusha grass. O supreme among Brahmanas, it is recommended that he should bathe thrice a day. For him, the following are praised: worshipping the gods, offering oblations, honoring all those who visit him, begging for alms, and performing sacrifices. It is recommended that he smear his limbs with oil obtained from the forest. O Indras among Brahmanas, a sage who is in Vanaprastha must always tolerate extreme heat and cold. Those are his austerities. Like a fire, it burns down his taints and he attains the eternal worlds. The learned have spoken of the fourth ashrama as that of the bhikshu, literally a mendicant who begs. This is sannyasa. O excellent ones, I will speak about it. Understand its nature. O supreme among Brahmanas, he must give up all attachment towards his sons, wives and objects. He will proceed to the fourth ashrama only when he has given up all envy. O supreme Brahmanas, he will not undertake any task indicated for the three varnas. He will be friendly towards all creatures and treat all of them as his friends. In his thoughts, words, and deeds, he will never cause injury to creatures born from the womb, from the egg, and so on. He will give up all sense of attachment. He will stay in a village for 1 night and in a city for 5 nights, so that there is no attachment towards a home. He will not exhibit affection or hatred for inferior species. For the sake of sustaining his life, he should visit houses and ask for alms, but only when the coal is not burning and when the incumbents have not eaten. When the cooking is over and there is still food in the house, only then he is supposed to go eat. He will not be distressed when nothing is obtained, nor will he be delighted when something is obtained. Aha. He will surely abhor gains, so he will dislike gains that are extremely sought after. Actually we had read this in Manusmriti as well, that in the Vanaprastha and the sannyasa phase, a person is not even supposed to eat food which has been produced agriculturally. He's supposed to eat fruit, like things like fruits which are naturally occurring, and also he's not supposed to accept gifts or food or alms which have been given by the bhakt or the gifter with a lot of enthusiasm. Okay, अच्छा गुरुजी आप आए हैं, प्लीज लीजिए. ऐसे अगर कोई दे रहा है तो वो भी नहीं लेना है. Only when it's given reluctantly, only then you are supposed to take it. That's what was written in the Manusmriti. This is the fantastic part about reading primary sources, guys. Such extremely sought after gains bind down a sage. Casting aside kama, krodha, darpa, lobha, moha, and other taints, he will free himself from the sense of mine. The 6 vices are kama, krodha, lobha, mada, arrogance, and matsarya, jealousy. Darpa is a synonym for mada. Okay. Mada is arrogance. Mada or mada. As he roams around the earth, he will grant all creatures freedom from fear. When he is freed from everything connected with the body, he will never suffer from fear. He will perform the Agnihotra sacrifice from within his own body, using his own mouth to offer oblations to the fire that is within his body. A Brahmana will use what he has obtained through begging to offer oblations to the fire that is in his consciousness. When he is in his ashrama of moksha, his resolution and intelligence must be to purify himself in this way. Like a fire without kindling, such dvijas are serene and go to Brahma's world. Meaning the first 3 varnas, not just Brahmanas. Next subchapter is called Transition Between Varnas. I wonder what this is about. This will be interesting. Let me have some tea and check some comments once again. Make your own AI and check the results. You will become afraid for some time, but after blackpilling begins, yes. Hopefully Neuralink becomes successful and we can merge with it, otherwise it's our end. We have to merge with AI or else go the way of our ancestors. Even so, AI will forever be a major threat given its vast evolution and hive mind. Yeah, hive mind is my biggest problem. I do recommend to everyone to go and make your own AI models. You will learn a lot. Just try it. Yeah, true. Transition between Varnas. The sages said, O immensely fortunate one, you know everything and are engaged in the welfare of all creatures. O sage, there is nothing that you do not know of the past, the present, and the future. Through what karma does one obtain a destination as an inferior varna, and how does one attain the status of a superior varna? O immensely intelligent one, please tell us this. Through what karma does a Shudra obtain the status of a Brahmana? We wish to hear how a Brahmana becomes a Shudra. Okay, this will probably be some talks about reincarnation, not in the same lifetime, I guess. Vyasa replied, okay guys, so let's see what's written here. It's going to be very interesting. This is not an Arya Samaji document. Vyasa replied, the beautiful summit of the Himalayas is decorated with many kinds of minerals. There are many kinds of trees and creepers and varied wonders. The 3-eyed Mahadeva, the destroyer of Tripura, resides there. Tripurantaka. The goddess, the daughter of the king of the mountains, so Parvati, because she is the daughter of Parvat. The goddess, the daughter of the king of the mountains, bowed down before the lord of the gods. Uma, in this case, who was the daughter of Himalayas and also Parvati, bowed down before the lord of the gods. O Brahmanas, in ancient times, the one with the beautiful eyes asked him this question. O supreme among sages, I will tell you about this. Listen. Uma said, O illustrious one, O destroyers of Bhaga's eyes and Pusha's teeth, so Pusha Dantabhide and Bhaga Netrabhide. O one who destroyed Daksha's sacrifice, Daksha Dvarahara. O three-eyed one, I have a great doubt. In ancient times, the illustrious Swambhu in this case is Brahma, okay, created the 4 Varnas. How and through what karma does a Vaishya become a Shudra? Through the practice of what dharma does the reverse progression happen? Pratiloma, the upward progression, and Shudra becoming a Vaishya is the Pratiloma. Okay. Does this reverse progression happen? Through what karma is a Brahmana born as a Shudra? O Lord, through what karma does a Kshatriya become a Shudra? O God, O Bhutapati, Lord of Beings, Shiva's name. I have a doubt about this. Please tell me. Through what kind of nature can the 3 Varnas become Brahmans? Maheshwara replied, O goddess, the status of becoming a Brahmana is difficult to obtain. It is my view that Brahmanas are naturally auspicious, while Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudra are naturally not auspicious. Through wicked deeds of karma, Brahmanas are dislodged from their position. Though they have obtained the status of the best Varna, they are flung down from there. If a Kshatriya or a Vaishya follows the Dharma of a Brahmana and earns his living through what is specified for a Brahmana, he obtains the status of a Brahmana. If a Brahmana gives up what is meant for him and follows the Dharma of a Kshatriya, he is dislodged from the status of being a Brahmana and is born as a Kshatriya. The status of being a Brahmana is extremely difficult to obtain. However, having attained it out of avarice or confusion, if a Brahmana undertakes the tasks of a Vaishya, the Brahmana becomes a Vaishya. That is also how a Vaishya becomes a Shudra. A Brahmana who is dislodged from his own Dharma becomes a Shudra. A person who has been ousted from his own Varna goes to hell. A person who has been dislodged from Brahma's world is born as a Shudra. O immensely fortunate one! A Kshatriya or a Vaishya who deviates from his own Dharma and Karma and follows the Karma of a Shudra is dislodged from his own Varna and is born as one whose Varna is mixed. Mixed Varna. Such a Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya can also become a Shudra. A Shudra engaged in his own Dharma, one who is pure and conversant with... Wait. A Shudra engaged in his own Dharma, one who is pure and conversant with Jnana and Vijnana. Jnana is knowledge gleaned from the sacred texts and the Guru, and Vijnana is that obtained through inward reflection. Okay? A Shudra engaged in his own Dharma, one who is pure and conversant with Jnana and Vijnana and knowledgeable about Dharma, one who is devoted to Dharma, obtains the fruit of that Dharma. O goddess, in this connection, the Brahman has also been spoken about. Those who desire success in the pursuit of Dharma must be devoted to Adhyatma, beyond the Atman. That is metaphysical. O goddess, the food cooked by an Ugra, someone with a Kshatriya father and a Shudra mother, is condemned. Food cooked collectively or at the time of birth or death is also condemned. When the cooking of food is announced publicly or when that food has been cooked by a Shudra, that too must never be taken. Okay, let me just confirm once again. So what did we learn about the Shudra? Obtains the fruits of that Dharma. Devoted to Dharma. Okay. So it's not exactly specified that whether that Shudra can become a Brahmin or not. That too must never be taken. O goddess, gods and great-souled ones always condemn food cooked by a Shudra. It is my view that what has emanated from the grandfather's mouth is sufficient proof. If a Brahmana dies with the remnants of food cooked by a Shudra in his stomach, or offers oblations to the fire, or performs sacrifices with such food, he obtains the status of being a Shudra. Bibek Debroy is saying, we have translated this literally, but this may mean offering oblations to the digestive fire. Okay. Because of the leftovers of food cooked by a Shudra, such a Brahmana is expelled from the status of being a Brahmana and becomes a Shudra. There is no need to reflect on this. If a Brahmana dies with the remnants of food cooked by any Varna in his stomach, that Brahmana attains the status of the Varna by whose food he has sustained himself. The status of being a Brahmana brings happiness and is extremely different to obtain. Having obtained it, if a person shows it disrespect by eating food that should not be eaten, he falls down from that status of being a Brahmana. A drunkard, one who kills a Brahmana, a thief, a robber, one who breaks his vows, an impure person, one who does not study, a wicked person, a greedy person, one who performs wicked deeds, a deceiver, one who does not observe vows, one who is the husband of a Vrishala lady. Vrishala is a synonym for Shudra, though it has some specific meanings too. One who is the husband of a Vrishala lady, a pimp, a person who sells soma, and a person who serves those who should not be served, such a Brahmana falls down from the status of being a Brahmana. One who has intercourse with his preceptor's wife, one who hates his preceptor, one who loves reviling his preceptor, and one who hates Brahmanas, such a Brahmana falls down from the status of being a Brahmana. O goddess, by performing the following auspicious deeds, a Shudra becomes a Brahmana and a Vaishya. Okay, we got a confirmation, guys. By performing the following auspicious deeds, a Shudra becomes a Brahmana and a Vaishya becomes a Kshatriya. This should end all debates. A Shudra, because Brahma Purana is not a sanitized, whitewashed Arya Samaji text, right? It was saying things pretty much that a modern liberal would bleed from the eyes if they read this thing. Even that text is pretty clear that Varnas change, anyone can become any Varna. By performing the following auspicious deeds, which we will now learn about, a Shudra becomes a Brahmana and a Vaishya becomes a Kshatriya. A Shudra becomes a Vaishya by properly undertaking all the tasks recommended for a Shudra, offering hospitality to everyone and eating the leftover food, carefully attending to and serving the superior Varnas, showing respect to those who are superior, always remaining established on the virtuous path, always worshipping gods and dvijas, observing the vow of offering hospitality to everyone, attentively having intercourse with his wife at the time of her period, being restrained in diet, being skilled by searching for virtuous people, and not eating meat in vain. Okay, not eating meat in vain means not eating the meat of an animal which was not killed via Pashubali. Okay. So basically, a Shudra becomes a Vaishya by being a very good Shudra, incidentally, because all the tasks that were mentioned here are the tasks of a Shudra anyway. But doing that, he becomes a Vaishya. Interesting. A Vaishya becomes a Brahmana by being truthful in speech, by being free from ahamkara, by being bereft of the opposite pair of sentiments, by being accomplished in conciliation, by always performing sacrifices, by studying, by being extremely pure, by being controlled, by doing good deeds towards Brahmanas, by not being envious of any of the Varnas, by following the vows of a householder, by eating twice a day, by eating leftovers, by following a restrained diet, by being without desire, by not speaking about himself, by performing Agnihotra sacrifices, by following the rites and offering oblations into the fire, by being hospitable to all guests and eating leftover food, and by maintaining the three fires. Okay, Ahavanya, Garhapatya and Dakshinatya, the fire that burns in a southern direction. These are the three fires. This is how a Vaishya becomes a Brahmana. A pure Vaishya who deserves to be born in a Kshatriya lineage is a true Vaishya. If a Vaishya remains clean since birth, he is born as a Kshatriya. If he is consecrated, clean, and devotes himself to the vows, he becomes a Brahmana. He performs sacrifices with copious quantities of dakshina. If he studies and always resorts to the three fires, he goes to heaven. A Kshatriya must follow Dharma and protect the subjects. His hand must always be wet. Wet meaning he must be generous. one touches water before any act, such as that of giving donations. In that sense, the hands must always remain wet of a Kshatriya, okay? Pure in his discrimination, he must always distinguish the true from the false. To obtain success in the pursuit of Dharma, Artha and Kama, he must use his staff of Dharma to burn down, okay, to burn down his sins, okay. He must be controlled in his tasks and take a share of 1/6 as taxes. He must not be addicted to carnal intercourse and must be readily accomplished in Artha. He must have Dharma in his soul and must always approach his wife at the time of her period. He must be controlled and must always fast. He must be pure and engaged in self-studying. He must always sleep inside his house and not outside its boundaries. With a happy mind, he must always be hospitable and pursue the three objectives, Dharma, Artha and Kama. He must always tell Shudras who desire food that it has been cooked, devoid of gunas, okay. So, he must always tell Shudras who desire food, quote, it has been cooked. So he must not ever let Shudras go hungry. He should not glance at anything with selfish eyes of desire. He must gather everything required for gods and ancestors. In his house, he must worship them, even if that has to be done through begging. In his house, he must worship them, gods and ancestors, even if that has to be done through begging. Following the norms, he must offer oblations and perform Agnihotra twice a day. For the welfare of cattle and Brahmanas, he must advance into battle and even be killed. If he purifies himself through mantras to the three fires, he becomes a Brahmana. Kshatriya becomes a Brahmana in this case. He becomes full of Jnana and Vijnana. He cleanses himself and becomes accomplished in the Vedas. Through his own deeds, a Vaishya who has Dharma in his soul becomes a Kshatriya. A goddess, O goddess, these are the fruits of deeds for this is because this is basically Shiva still talking to Uma. These are the fruits, O goddess, these are the fruits of deeds for those who are born in different classes. By cleansing himself, even a Shudra can become a Brahmana. I'm quoting Lord Shiva. In that way, if a Brahmana deviates from cleaning himself and from clean food, he loses his state of being a Brahmana and becomes a Shudra. O goddess, if a Shudra is pure in soul and conquers his senses, and if he is pure in his deeds, he becomes a Brahmana. Brahma has himself said this. I am quoting Lord Shiva, who is quoting Brahma. If a Shudra is engaged in his own tasks and purifies himself, he becomes a Brahmana. Know that this is my view. Birth, sacraments, learning and offspring cannot be the reason for someone being a Brahmana. What? What is going on here? What did we just read? What did we just read? So it's, and this Brahma Purana is written at around 1000 AD. It's not even like, yes, Varna shifting used to happen much before. Later on it got solidified and rigid. Maybe the society was not following it, okay. But the scriptural argument is crystal clear because it's an unsanitized, non-whitewashed text. And not only was it so far claiming that any Varna can become any Varna, there was no ambiguity about it being in a different birth. Because now Lord Shiva just said, birth has nothing to do with it. Let's read the sentence once again. Birth, sacraments, learning and offspring cannot be the reason for someone being a Brahmana. Good conduct alone is the reason. Arey bhai, ye kya hai? I will have to, of course, edit this entire part and release it separately, because there are only 5 people watching this. Holy sh! Good conduct alone is the reason. In this world, those who are Brahmanas are characterized by good conduct. If he is established by good conduct, even a Shudra becomes a Brahmana. Oh, one with the beautiful hips. It is my view that a Brahmana is one in whom the essence of the Brahman exists. If the Nirguna, who is devoid of gunas, and sparkling Brahman, if the Nirguna and sparkling Brahman exists, that person is a Brahmana. If the Nirguna and sparkling Brahman exists, that person is a Brahmana. O goddess, such unblemished people indicate what should be done in different states. Brahma, the creator of subjects and the one who bestows boons, has himself said this. The Brahmana is like a giant field that is roaming around on its feet. The Brahmana is like a giant field that is roaming around on its feet. O beautiful one, if anyone sows seeds in this field, that act of agriculture yields fruits after death. If a person wants to be content, he must always think of adhering to the virtuous path. His conduct should be characterized by adhering to the Brahmana's path. Okay. A person who is a householder should study the Samhita texts at home. And any arranged collection of texts, the word is applied to various texts. He must always be engaged in studying, but should never resort to teaching for earning his living. Such a Brahmana is always established in the virtuous path. He offers oblations into the fire and studies. Okay, he offers oblations into the fire and studies and is fit to be merged into the Brahman. O goddess, having obtained the status of being a Brahmana, one must always seek to protect it. O one with the beautiful smiles, he must engage in his tasks and receive gifts from worthy donors. I have thus told you the secret about how a Shudra can become a Brahmana and about how a Brahmana can be dislodged from Dharma and become a Shudra. Okay? That rests all debates. And of course, whether the Arya Samaji Manusmriti can really be blamed that much or not. Okay? This is Brahma Purana. It can't get any more clearer than this. Shiva had to say beautiful lips. And we are rewarding people for being Shudra. Jai Shri Ram indeed. Yes. And after this moment, I will never again doubt ever from calling myself a very, very, very proud Kattar Hindu. All ambiguity is gone, guys. Also, of course, there are some ambiguity whether how much you have to believe exactly in the specific ritual or not. I see the value in rituals, but at least the caste question is answered for me. Brahmana is a giant field. In terms of Star Wars, it's the Force. Yes, seems like it. Okay, then let's end the live stream here, guys, and I'll have to edit this part out because this was insane. Thanks for joining, guys. Whoever listened to this live knows what it felt like, because most of us have not read Brahma Puran. Star Wars Force is not Brahman. It only emanates from living beings, but Brahman is all pervasive reality. Yeah, Star Wars Force is more of Shakti. And it's Parashakti basically, isn't it? Because Shakti is Para, Apara and Parapara. The Star Wars kind of force is basically Parashakti. Puja ki plan korcho dada. Okay, he's asking what are my plans for pujas. My plans for pujas is basically staying at home and hanging out with friends, whoever can come, and going one day to a puja in my old neighborhood. Then I don't go out in pujas much because first of all, so much traffic jam, you can't park anywhere, etc. And also if I book a driver, they will probably be drunk or be awake the entire night the previous night, or there will be other drunk people on the road who will probably hit my car, etc. Those are the problems. Okay, good night then, guys.